Now in this video lecture we will talk about stability of colloidal solutions, right? So first let's understand this is a colloidal solution, right? This is the dispersion medium, right? And we have colloidal particles, right, moving randomly in all directions in your colloidal solution, right? So by stability of colloidal solution we mean that these particles, because we know that if the size of the particles go beyond 1000 nanometer, right, if it's more than 1000 nanometer, it will become suspension, right? In other words, if these colloidal particles will start coming close to each other and start coalescing, right, start uniting with one another, their particle size will cross the colloidal range, right, which is of between 1 nanometer to 1000 nanometer, right? And once they cross this 1000 nanometer, they will become suspension, right? And once they become suspension, that means colloidal solution doesn't exist, right? It's no more stable, right? So under what conditions the colloidal solution would be unstable? When these colloidal particles will come close to one another, right, and unite, right, to form bigger particles, right? In other words, we also say that a precipitation occurs or a coagulation occurs between colloidal particles to form bigger particles of suspension range, right? Or it will, if a colloidal solution precipitates, it's unstable, right? The existence, once it precipitates, the existence of colloidal solution is no more there, right? So now if we talk about stability of colloidal solution, right, what prevents these colloidal particles or the dispersed phase particles from coming close to one another, right? That contributes to the stability of colloidal solution, right? So whatever factor, right, causes these colloidal particles not to come close to one another, to unite and form bigger particle, will contribute to the stability of colloidal solutions, right? So now let's see what factors contribute to stability, right? Stability of these colloidal solutions. Okay, before this video lecture, we have understood that colloidal solutions have charge on them, right? The particles in colloidal solution are charged. They are positively charged or negatively charged, but all colloidal particles have similar charge on them, right? For example, let's understand this taking an example of preparation of one ionic colloidal solution, silver iodide, right? Silver iodide is prepared from potassium iodide plus silver nitrate, right? So once you prepare silver iodide, right, from silver nitrate and potassium iodide, right, and you keep this potassium iodide in excess, then this silver iodide, right, this colloidal solution of silver iodide will start absorbing one of the ions, that is silver ion or iodide ions, right? So since colloidal particle or colloidal solution or the particles in colloidal solution will absorb ion, which will absorb one of the ions which is there in its own lattice, right, which is there since silver iodide has silver and iodide ion. So silver iodide will absorb either silver ion or iodide ion, right? So here if we use potassium iodide in excess, then it will the common ion, right, the common ion between these two is iodide ion, right? So when we use potassium iodide in excess, then once we get a colloidal solution of silver iodide, this silver iodide will start absorbing iodide ions from potassium iodide, right? So silver iodide will absorb iodide ions, right? And we know that iodide ions are negatively charged. So silver iodide will develop negative charge, right? Like this. Silver iodide particles or silver iodide colloidal particles will develop negative charge like this, right? The only thing you need to remind is that you need to remember is that this colloidal particles, right, or colloidal solution of silver iodide will absorb one of its ions, right? So here one of its ion, and if you use potassium iodide, right, in excess, it will absorb one of its ions, right? Since this potassium iodide has iodide ion, so it will start absorbing iodide ions from potassium iodide and will develop a negative charge. So this is how these colloidal solutions develop charges on them, right? Charges on them. Now, if instead of potassium iodide, I take excess of silver nitrate, then in that case, since silver iodide can absorb one of its ions, right? So silver nitrate has a common silver nitrate and silver iodide has a common silver ion. So in that case, silver iodide will absorb silver ion, right, and will develop a positive ion, right? If silver nitrate is in excess, then silver iodide, if this is in excess, then silver iodide will absorb silver ion and will develop a positive charge, right? So the charge on colloidal particles develop due to the absorption of one of its ion, right? Here iodide ions got absorbed and here silver ions got absorbed, right? So it will absorb one of its ions which is in its lattice, right? So this is how it will develop charges on it. So now we know that colloidal particles are charged. They have charges on its surface due to adsorption of ions, right? So colloidal particles acquire charge due to adsorption of ions. Due to adsorption of ions, right? So now if you have these colloidal particles in solution, say all these are positive ions, these colloidal particles have acquired positive ion by adsorption, then since all these are positive charge, so if two particles have similar charge and they try to come close to one another, they will experience a repulsive force, right, due to which they will again repel back, right? They will move back, right? Once they come close enough to one another, they will face a repulsive force due to similar charges on their surfaces, right, due to which they repel back, right? So they don't come close to one another to coalesce or to unite to form bigger particles. This is the reason for the stability of colloidal solutions, right? So I write due to similar charges, colloidal particles do not come close to unite, right? To unite. So this is the reason for the stability of colloidal solutions. First is the charges on colloidal particles, right? Presence of similar charge on colloidal particles contributes to the stability of colloidal solutions, right? Now let's talk about this in terms of lyophilic and lyophobic colloids, right? Now, since I said that due to the presence of charge, these colloidal solutions are stable, right? If somehow I destroy this charge, right, then the colloidal particles can come close to one another and unite to form bigger particles, or once they form bigger particles, that means they precipitate, right? They are precipitating or they are coagulating to form bigger particles, right? So in order to destabilize the colloidal solution, we need to destroy the charges on the colloidal particles, right? So in order to destabilize colloidal solutions, we need to destroy the charges on colloidal particles, right? So why they are stable? Because of the similar charges. And how we can make them unstable, how we can make them coagulate? By destroying the charge on the colloidal particles, right? So now let's talk about gold sol, right? Gold sol is a hydrophobic sol, right? And it has a negative charge on it, right? Say it has a negative charge on it. Let's talk about a hydrophobic sol. Hydrophobic sol, let's take example of gold. It has a negative charge, right? Now hydrophobic sol are those sols that are water hating, right? They stay away from water, right? They are not soluble in water, they do not interact with water, so they try to stay away from water, right? Now if somehow I destroy the negative charge on the gold colloidal particles, then I can make them coalesce or coagulate, right? Thereby destroying the stability of colloidal solutions, right? So one way of destroying the charge on colloidal particles is to add an electrolyte, right? So if this is a gold sol, I add an electrolyte, right? If I add an electrolyte, say sodium chloride, that has a positive charge and negative charge, right? Positive charge on sodium can destroy the negative charge which is on the surface of gold, right? So addition of electrolyte can cause destabilization or coagulation of colloidal sols, right? So once I add electrolyte sodium chloride, say, then the negative charge, this negative charge will get removed from gold sol. Now this is discharged. Now there is no charge on the gold particles. Now what can happen is two gold colloidal particles can come near to one another and interact or combine to form a bigger particle, right? To form a bigger particle, and this is your coagulation or precipitation. Right? So it is easy to precipitate hydrophobic sols. Right? Now let's talk about hydrophilic sols. Right? Hydrophilic sol is a gelatin sol. We know that gelatin is a lyophilic sol. Right? We also call this as lyophobic, water hating, or dispersion medium hating, or liquid hating. Right? So let's talk about a lyophilic sol. Lyophilic sol, say a gelatin sol. When I say lyophilic means liquid loving, right? Liquid loving, or if liquid is water, then it is hydrophilic, right? Let's say gelatin is hydrophilic, right? Which is lyophilic. If I take liquid as water, so we call it as hydrophilic, right? So if I take a colloidal solution, a hydrophilic colloidal solution of gelatin, then it has a charge on it, right? And in addition to charge, it also has a layer of water, surrounding gelatin. Say if this is gelatin, right? Say if this is gelatin, then since it's a colloidal solution, so it has a charge around it on its surface, right? It has a negative charge on its surface. Since it's a colloidal solution, so it must have a charge on its surface due to adsorption of ions, so it has a negative charge. Now since it's a lyophilic or hydrophilic colloidal solution, which means it can interact with water, right? Or it can dissolve in water. So instead of in addition to the charge, it also has a layer of water surrounding it, right? So in addition to the charge, it also has a layer of water surrounding. Right. Now if you add an electrolyte, right, to destroy the negative charge on the surface of gelatin in order to coagulate it or destabilize it, then say if I add sodium chloride to it, right, then this layer of water will not allow sodium ions to penetrate and interact with gelatin to remove or to neutralize its charge, right? So this layer of water will not allow sodium ions to penetrate and discharge the charge on the gelatin, right? So now we see that lyophilic colloidal solutions are more stable compared to lyophobic or hydrophobic colloidal solutions because of the additional layer of water around the colloidal particles, right? So we say that lyophilic salts are more stable than lyophobic salts due to additional layer of water surrounding colloidal particles, right? So due to this additional layer of water surrounding colloidal particles, lyophilic salts are more stable than lyophobic salts, right? And we would be using this in order to stabilize. We can use lyophilic salts in order to stabilize lyophobic salts. We'll do that in another video lecture. But for this video lecture, you just understand that why these colloidal solutions are stable, right, and how we can destabilize it, right? In case of hydrophobic, you just have to add an electrolyte, right? And we see that lyophilic salts are more stable than lyophobic salts due to the presence of this water layer around it, right, which prevented these oppositely charged ions from destroying the charge on colloidal particles. Now if this is water, then there is a way. If still I want to destabilize this lyophilic salt, right, then in addition to this electrolyte, I'll add a dehydrating agent, right, to remove charge on the gelatin colloidal particles, right? So in addition to electrolyte, right, after adding electrolyte, if you add, or along with electrolyte, if you add a dehydrating agent, the work of dehydrating agent is to remove water or to absorb water, right? So dehydrating agent, right, will remove this layer of water, right? So once this layer of water is removed, then sodium ions would easily be able to discharge the charge on the gelatin colloidal particles, right? So here, in addition to electrolyte, we also add a dehydrating agent, right? So to coagulate or precipitate lyophilic sol, we add electrolyte and a dehydrating agent. To remove the water layer, surrounding the colloidal particle, right? So now in all, we understood that the stability of colloidal solution is due to the charge present on the colloidal particles, right? And charge is developed due to adsorption of ions, right? And the second thing is the solvation of colloidal particles, right? The water that has surrounded these colloidal particles, right? This is known as solvation, right? So two things: the stability is due to first charge on the colloidal particles, right? Presence of similar charge, right? And the second is solvation of colloidal particles, right? Second is solvation of colloidal particles. So these two factors contribute to the stability of colloidal solutions, right? And these two things, these stability factors, can be overcome, right? Or colloidal solutions can be coagulated or precipitated if charges on the colloidal particles can be removed. That can be done by addition of electrolyte, and solvation of colloidal particles can be destroyed by adding dehydrating agent, right? So I hope all this is clear to you. This is important. Now we'll further go ahead with the protection of hydrophobic salts, or the protecting action of salts. After this lecture, we will go ahead with the protecting action of salts. I hope all this is clear to you. Thanks.